Menu planning used to take me hours and usually left me in tears, but I finally found a way that works for us, and I'm going to tell you about it today. Can you relate to the fact that figuring out what to make for supper is the hardest part of actually getting supper on the table? Have you been there at 5 p.m. and it's time to start cooking and you don't know what you're making? You look at your fridge and you rifle through your pantry and you ask, what in the world can I throw together and call supper for today? Yeah, we should plan ahead, and yet those days creep up on us and we have no idea what we're going to do. I used to try to avoid that happening by menu planning, and so my strategy was pretty simple. It just was really ineffective. I would pull all my recipe books out, put them in front of me, and start flipping, looking for ideas. And it would take me hours to find new recipes, be reminded of recipes that I had made in the past, and to come up with a short list of meals to make for 1 week. I'd open up my computer too, and all these recipes that I had bookmarked, I'd open them up and I'd have a bunch of tabs in front of me, and I'd just start sobbing, like, why is this so hard? It just is. It's hard. If that's your strategy, I'm sorry, but you need a better way. I reached a point where I realized, including me, 8 people depend on me to get supper on the table. That is my reality. And that's my reality day in and day out. This isn't going away. This is going to be what life is like for a long time. And that's really good, right? To have people who love us and we love depending on us to give them a healthy, delicious meal. This is a really fun responsibility, you guys. So I realized if that's my reality, I need to grow up and get good at it and stop crying about it. So I came up with a way that actually is working for us, and I'm going to share it with you today. It involves 2 prep steps that you need to do once, and you don't need to revisit them again unless you want to, and then 2 steps on a weekly basis. So I just want to make a little disclaimer here. I am not saying that this menu planning strategy is for everyone. This is what works for me. So take what you like, spit out the bones, and come and see how I actually get this done. So I have only 2 prep steps that allow me to plan my meals week after week. And the first step is to put my breakfasts and my lunches on autopilot, meaning we eat the same thing at breakfast every day, and we eat the same thing at lunch every day. Now, before you click away and you think, this is stupid, I don't want to do this, please wait and hear me out, okay? I used to think the same thing. I used to think, why in the world would you want to eat the same thing every day? That's so boring. I want variety in my diet. You know what? I do get a lot of variety in my diet. What I don't have is stress about what to make at breakfast and lunchtime. I thought I wanted variety, and what I actually wanted was simplicity, because simple actually gets done. So for us, this looks like at breakfast, I eat a veggie omelet every day. Clay eats eggs. The kids eat cereal with milk. Occasionally they'll have eggs and toast. And then on Sundays, there's the one exception that I'll make a big pot of oatmeal for the entire family to have before we go gather with the church. That just makes it really a lot easier to get 8 people out the door on a timeline. And then at lunch, I will usually eat a salad with some protein, whether that's chicken that I've prepped, I've pre-cooked and chopped and frozen, and I can pull out a portion for my salad, or I'll put boiled eggs on it, some sort of protein on my salad. And then Clay will eat leftovers. And Marcus and Wyatt, my older boys who go to high school, they pack up sandwiches and fruit. They don't want to take leftovers because they don't want to wait for a microwave at school. So they're happy to pack sandwiches, and that's what they want. And so that's what they make, and that's what they get ready all on their own. And then the other kids who are home during the day, they'll either eat leftovers if there are any that are left after Clay gets to them, or else we'll just throw something together that looks like lunch. You can pretty much put anything in a tortilla and call it lunch. And 2 and 5-year-olds are usually the most happy with that kind of lunch anyway. And you know what? Putting all of these things on autopilot frees up so much mental energy for me so that when we get to the end of the day and it's time to cook supper, I actually have the capacity to think about putting some energy into making supper, and I'm not all burned out from having to cook 3 meals a day. I just have to make 1. Okay, so now I'm ready for step 2 of my prep steps, and that is creating a master list of meals. And this is really simple. All you're going to do is write down a list of things that you know how to make that your family likes to eat. It's not that complicated, right? But this is going to make meal planning in the future so much easier, because what I would do in the past is I would sit down in front of a blank piece of paper and think, I'm going to make a meal plan. And I'm staring at this blank paper and my mind is blank. And all I can think is, I don't know how to cook. Why do all these people depend on me to make supper for them? I don't know how to cook. The truth is, I do know how to cook. There are meals that I know how to make. So I'll write down the things that I can think of, that I know how to make, that I like making, that I like eating. And when I run out of ideas, then I will go ask my family, what do I make that you like to eat? And I'll write it down, because it's really important for you to take into account what people actually like eating. It might not be your favorite meal, but if others like it and they feel loved when you cook that for them, don't you want that? So I'll write it all down. Even in my family, where often the suggestion is, can we have Kraft dinner and hot dogs and cream corn? I'm sorry. What? Honestly, I don't understand why cream corn apparently goes with macaroni and cheese. But people like it, so occasionally I will make it. Whatever this looks like for you and your family, whatever the weird ideas are, put them down, because people actually like eating them and they feel loved when you make it for them. And this doesn't have to be fancy. So write down simple things like grilled cheese with tomato soup, spaghetti and meat sauce, sloppy joes, eggs and toast. You're not trying to create like a fancy fine dining restaurant in your living room. Living room? Do you eat in your living room? I meant to say dining room. Okay, unless you are trying to recreate a fine dining experience. But you don't have to do that every night, right? So then I'll take those easier meals like eggs and toast. And if we have a really busy day and that's all I can get on the table is eggs and toast, that's fine, because at least we're not picking up burgers from McDonald's, right? And then I can plan more elaborate meals that take a little bit more effort on days that we don't have as much going on. So for us, that would be lasagna. Lasagna takes some time to pull together, but if it's a day that's not super busy, I can make that work. So now that I've got my meals on autopilot for breakfast and lunch, and I have a master list of ideas, those two prep steps are done, and I'm ready to actually plan meals, and I don't have to come back to revisit these steps unless I want to later. Like if I want to change these meals later, I can do that. But with these two steps done, I can plan meals for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'm only going to have 2 steps that need to happen in order for that to take place. Okay, so now we are ready to menu plan, and all you're going to do is pick 7 meals, a meal for each day for 1 week. What I like to do is take a blank sheet of paper and I will write a little grid across the top, 7 squares for 7 days, and I'll check our schedule and I'll make sure that if there's anything out of the ordinary happening, things that would affect when we eat, what we eat, like I'm not going to plan an elaborate meal on a day that we have a lot going on, right? So I'm going to pick simple meals for busy days, and then I can choose meals that take a little more mental energy, a little more time. I can pick those meals for days that aren't as busy. And the great thing about autopilot meals, I know I told you that I have breakfast and lunch on autopilot, but I actually have some of our suppers on autopilot too. And this makes cooking so easy. I don't know that I would want to do it every single day of the week, but 2 out of 7 days, I know what I'm making for supper. Every Monday, I make pizza. Every Tuesday, I make tacos. And the prep comes together so quickly. When I first learned to make pizza, it took a lot of mental energy, a lot of time. And now I barely have to think about it because I've done it so many times. I'm so familiar with the process. It's a meal that just pulls together so easily as long as I have the time to get dough made and all that kind of stuff. So 2 out of 7 are taken care of for me. Now I just need to pick 5 more meals. So for me, I go through my list and I make sure I pick a variety of protein. I'm not going to pick all beef meals. I'm not going to pick all chicken meals. I want to have a little bit of a variety in there. And then I also want to see some variety with our starch. So potato, pasta, rice. I try to vary that so that we're not eating the same thing all the time. And then I assign each meal to a specific day. And if this makes you cringe and you think, I don't want to plan in advance, because what if I plan to make pasta on Wednesday, but when it's Wednesday, I don't want to eat pasta? Not to worry. You don't have to eat pasta on Wednesday if you don't want to eat pasta on Wednesday. You could just make a list and then pick from that day after day as you feel led, you know. But at least you've planned and you've bought groceries And this is going to save you time. It's going to save you trips to the store, and it's going to save you money. If you're getting value from this, please like and subscribe so we can spend more time together. And now I'm going to share the final step with you for my weekly meal planning. Now it's time for the second and final step, and this is simply making a grocery list. And thankfully, these are recipes that I'm familiar with, like I said again and again. And because they're recipes that I'm familiar with, I don't have to have the recipe in front of me in order to make the grocery list. I know what I need when I'm going to make pizza. I know what I need when I'm going to make spaghetti and meat sauce. And I know what's in my fridge, my pantry, my freezer. And I know what isn't in there. So those are things that I'm going to add to my grocery list, right? Then I go through my breakfast and my lunch meals, the things that we eat regularly, ongoing, day after day after day. And it's easy to make a list of the things that we need for those meals. I like using the app Bring. It's a grocery list app, and I talked about it in my favorite apps video a few weeks ago. But the great thing about it when it comes to menu planning is that it keeps a list of things that I have recently purchased at each store. And so I can go into my Costco list, for example. And since I usually buy mushrooms, lettuce, little cucumbers, cherry tomatoes from Costco, that's all in my recently purchased items. And I can just tap those back into my list of things that I need to buy. And it literally comes together in 10 minutes rather than easily an hour. If I was going through and using recipes that I wasn't really familiar with, I'd have to have all those recipes spread out in front of me. And this recipe needs 3 cups of mushrooms. So I write that down. And then later I come across another recipe that needs 1 cup of mushrooms. Well, now I have to find that. And I don't know. Maybe that I'm making it sound like I was overcomplicating things. But honestly, making a grocery list took me a long time in the past. Then the other great thing about the way that I've been doing this meal planning is that we have very little food waste because I'm buying ingredients that we're actually using. So I don't have salad greens wilting in my crisper, and I don't have mushrooms smelling like fish at the back of my fridge because I use them every day. I know how much I'm going to use in a week. They get used up. I'm not throwing stuff away and throwing money in the garbage. So you can see that once you've done the 2 prep steps of putting breakfast and lunch on autopilot and creating a master meal list, menu planning is really only a 2-step process. Plan the meals you want to make for a week, make your grocery list. It really comes together very quickly and simply. So, do I ever make anything new? That might be one very burning question on your mind. Yes, I do. But I have learned that I can only handle 1 new recipe in a week. And that 1 new recipe is only going to happen if it is able to be made on a day that I have nothing else going on. It takes a lot of mental energy to wrap your mind around making something new. You might be working with new ingredients, new cooking techniques. And usually, recipe writers grossly underestimate the amount of time it's going to take someone to make something. And I find that I need to start earlier than the recipe tells me I'm going to need to start, and I usually end up finishing later than it says I'm going to finish. So that's just the reality for me. Maybe you can handle more new recipes in a week, but I top out at 1. This menu planning strategy is simple, but it's simple enough to actually get done. And I've been really happy with it. Best part is, it doesn't make me cry. I finally found a menu planning strategy that I don't cry over. My husband Clay had a health crisis a couple of years ago that resulted in a surgery that drastically changed what he's allowed to eat and when he eats. And this was really what pushed me in order to finally get serious about menu planning. I could wing it before. I can't wing it anymore. I need a plan because in order for him to not feel sick, he needs to have a meal that has a lot of animal protein in it, a very small amount of carbohydrates, and vegetables in the dish need to be cooked. I can't just serve raw vegetables on the side. So that's challenging. That's something I can't just wing. I can't throw together a board of miscellaneous cheese crackers or say, hey guys, we're having cereal for supper. Sorry I didn't plan anything, because my husband will literally be sick if he doesn't eat something healthy. And so I count it as a blessing to be able to provide that for him. He works hard to provide for our family, and so I want to put in the effort to work hard to provide food for him. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite go-to meals are. Maybe it'll be just the thing that somebody else needs to be inspired to get started on their master menu list. I'll see you next time.